Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revin, and this is the Sunday 7.
As 2024 wraps up, on today's Sunday 7, we take a look back at some of our favourite stories from January to June. We'll be back next week with part 2. It's been a year where the climate made its presence impossible to ignore. A major group of cyber criminals got brought down, and we saw an actual brain-computer chip in action. Plus, Will Guyatt takes us on a whistle-stop tour through some of the biggest big tech versus big low cases we've seen. Remember, if you're enjoying the episode, please do follow us or leave a review. And we're here every day of the week with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 at 7 a.m. Let's go right back to the start of the year when more than 200 flood warnings were in place and an Arctic blast hit the UK. Scotland's temperature got down to a bone-chilling minus 14 degrees Celsius, giving us some of the coldest temperatures we've seen for 14 years. Meteorologist Nasir broke it down for us at the time, explaining how the El Nino weather cycle and a shifting jet stream were behind those icy conditions.
Well, the cold weather's coming from the Arctic, and I was just looking the other day at temperatures just off the coast of Norway. There's an island called Svalbard, and it's got a weather station there, and it recorded a maximum temperature of minus 19 degrees Celsius. Now, that's Baltic, isn't it? So you get a gist of where the air is coming from and how cold it is. However, sea surface temperatures really modify the air mass as it moves across the UK. So sea surface temperatures in the north are moving around 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. So that really sparks lots of energy in the atmosphere. The reason why we're getting those snow showers, a real mix of cold and less cold. But certainly inland, because the air is so cold, particularly through the night, we see starry skies. Any warmth in the air radiates away into the upper atmosphere, and that's where we get those low temperatures. And for the snowfields of Scotland, well, the temperature doesn't rise much through the day either. It just, any sunshine just reflects off and just pushes away.
And it wasn't just about making weather records. The world smashed another record with the news that 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded by a huge margin. It's already been confirmed that 2024 will beat the record again. Dr. Friederika Otto is a senior lecturer in climate science at the Grantham Institute for Climate Change and the Environment at Imperial College London. She spoke about how it was clear fossil fuels are the primary cause of global warming.
You really have to stop burning fossil fuels, and quickly, because already a 1.5 or even a 1.5 degree world is difficult for our societies to deal with. And we're not on track for 1.5 degrees. The policies currently in place get us somewhere closer, much closer to 3 degrees. That is not something that this world and our societies are constructed to be able to withstand.
Also back in January, the World Economic Forum in Davos saw health experts like the World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus connect the dots between climate change and global health. He was urging businesses to take action.
Climate change is increasing disasters, driving hunger and water scarcity, and fueling the spread of infectious disease outbreaks, and I can go on and on. I think everybody knows the problems. We know the private sector is cutting edge technology, and that's very, very important to tap to. And the fourth is market-based approach in collaboration with the private sector can facilitate the adoption of market-based approach to climate and health financing. This includes mechanisms such as impact investing, green bonds, and public-private partnerships. And the joint partnership, the scalability and efficiency can also be compared.
Big law versus big tech. It's been one of those simmering stories we've been talking about for quite a while. But courtroom clashes, regulatory battles and eye-watering sums of money flying around were commonplace in the news this year. To help us unpack it all, it's Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's tech guru. So, Will, why did so many people start talking about big tech and big law? What made this year feel like a turning point?
I don't like to boast, but big tech versus big law was on our list of predictions for 2024 and we weren't disappointed. The number of legal cases against tech companies stacked up through the year, while the total value of fines that were racked up globally went into the billions, and even more if you include the bonkers fine levied in Russia at YouTube. Now, we knew at the start of the year that a number of big antitrust cases were looming in the UK, US and EU, but I think we were all taken by surprise by the fact that a major new case seemed to come through from somewhere on what felt like a weekly basis.
Big tech's grip on the world has never been under more scrutiny, and big law has been right there to capitalise on it. What were the standout cases this year? Who was suing who?
In short, if you're a big tech company, everybody's getting sued. And based on what I've been following and reporting, it will have been the toughest year for Google on record. It's getting skewered everywhere. Now, it's hard to keep track, but in the EU alone, the European Commission has been dishing out antitrust penalties left, right and centre. Google had over €8 billion of fines, Microsoft over €2 billion, and Apple and Meta got their first EU antitrust fines. That was €1.2 billion for Apple and €800 million respectively for Meta. These are not inconsiderable amounts. And for the craziest case of the year, let's not forget the Russian court that fired Google an incredible amount for blocking its state-controlled broadcasters on YouTube. It ended up being more cash than there was in the world. I don't think I'd ever heard of 2 undecillion rubles before, but that's a 2 followed by 36 zeros. The latest we've heard on this case is they've just tipped the sofa up at Google HQ.
Now, let's talk money. How big did the numbers get, both in terms of the fines big tech faced and the amounts raked in by legal teams?
Nobody keeps a running tally, but we've had over €18 billion of fines levied in the EU when you roll in GDPR data protection cases and everything else against the antitrust cases we've already discussed. And counting numbers on my fingers, I think we're over $10 billion worth of fines too. And we'll never get to find out how much the legal teams earned, as that always gets hidden. But one look at tech company job ads globally shows that these businesses are all heavily lawyering up, because that's likely to reduce the cost ongoing of hiring uber pricey external companies.
Would you say anyone came out ahead this year, or have the legal pressures been bad all round?
If this was a football score, it would be Big Law 1, Big Tech 0. The huge fines we've seen in Europe for perceived anti-competitive behaviour by tech companies and the amount of legal cases growing in the US, they've seen social networks make some key concessions, particularly when it comes to protecting young people online.
It feels like regulators are really starting to crack down. Did 2024 see a shift in how governments are approaching these issues?
I've been scratching my head at some of the cases we've seen this year, particularly those that attack businesses that have spent billions on developing decent services like Apple's iCloud and claiming that being the market leader makes you anti-competitive. But at the same time, I do feel that tech companies really must get round the table to address concerns. They shouldn't have been able to operate outside of the law for so long. If governments had been allowing tech companies to self-regulate before, that certainly disappeared in 2024, with a growing attitude that they've been able to generate huge profits at the expense of literally everything from user safety to a general impact on society. In some countries, though, you might argue that governments are now looking to blame tech companies for every problem. In Australia's ban of social media for under 16s, the government said it was stepping in to protect future generations, while completely ignoring the fact that parents have a role to play too. Mark Zuckerberg does not deliver a smartphone to your house with WhatsApp and Instagram already pre-installed.
How does this set the stage for 2025? Have we got any clashes on the horizon in the new year?
This environment is definitely continuing into 2025. Here in the UK, the Online Safety Act finally rolled out its regulations about a week before Christmas. And if tech companies are found to be breaking the rules after March 2025, they could find themselves liable for a fine of around 10% of their global revenue if they fail to do a load of different things like protect kids online, stop gender discrimination and hate speech spreading online. We've also got a big one ahead in the US, as TikTok effectively gets banned in the country just before Donald Trump comes into the power at the end of January, unless the platform has a forced sale to an American company because of perceived risks due to so-called Chinese ownership. And if that wasn't enough, the US government are going to have their first go at breaking up the dominance of Google next year. If legally allowed, the company will have to sell its Chrome browser because of its perceived dominance in online advertising that's shutting out rivals. And in the EU, there are at least, and I counted them, another 19 separate laws coming into place that will give the bloc unlock additional powers over tech companies operating there. Everything from managing the algorithms used in artificial intelligence to cybersecurity for hospitals. In 2025, there's literally something for every tech lawyer to get their teeth into.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, the UK gets its third ever career astronaut and animals started surfing the web. In February, we saw law enforcement bring down one of the most prolific ransomware gangs. Lockbit had been causing havoc globally since 2019, targeting companies, governments and individuals with their operation, causing billions in damages. It took the combined efforts of 10 countries to hack into the gang's infrastructure, and the cyber cops shut down 34 servers, seized over 200 crypto accounts and arrested key players. At the time, FBI Deputy Director Paul Abbate called it a major victory.
Today's announcement marks an extraordinary win for the FBI and our law enforcement partners around the globe. In addition to disrupting the Lockbit ransomware group at every level, we are also providing assistance and support to victims of the largest and most deployed ransomware variant around the world. It is difficult to say exactly how many victims of Lockbit there are, but we estimate in 2023 alone, there were 1,000 victims just in the United States. The FBI is currently reaching out to each of the victims we know about to share possible decryption capabilities.
The same week, law enforcement took down Lockbit. Another chilling cyber story surfaced from 2020. Bloomberg broke the news of a massive, previously undisclosed hack on the US Department of Health and Human Services. They hold lots of American sensitive data, and the attack was a significant attempt to disrupt the US government.
This is the Department of Health and Human Services, and on March 16, 2020, they were going to full remote work. Network operators had to adjust all their firewall and security settings to allow hundreds of thousands of new unknown connections into their network. So they had to scale down their security all at the same time. And what they landed on was this was a scamming operation. This was an attempt, a successful attempt, to map the entirety of the Health and Human Services network in very, very quick fashion.
Jose Arrieta was the chief information officer at the time. He revealed this attack was even more sinister than originally thought, calling it a potential catastrophe.
I believe that the only two countries in the world that could probably launch something at that scale with that level of planning and coordination are Russia or China. This was like a nuclear weapon in the sense that a distributed denial of service attack at the scale that we appeared to be experiencing would have ended our ability to function and operate. But I don't think that was the purpose. I think it was a head fake so that another action could be taken.
And while Lockbit weren't responsible for that hack, their ransomware model reshaped cybercrime. Taking them down was definitely a massive win, but it's just a chapter in the ongoing battle against digital criminals. Here's the FBI's Paul Abbate again. He had a Liam Neeson-esque warning for other bad actors out there.
The bottom line is this. If you are a victim of ransomware, the FBI is on your side and is working to help you. For those criminal elements who attempt to exploit online services and damage companies and harm innocent people who are just trying to conduct business and live their lives, we will continue to work relentlessly with our partners around the world to find you, shut you down, and bring you to justice.
In March, a remarkable video appeared on the internet showing the first patient with a Neuralink chip implanted in their brain. It allows them to control devices with their brainwaves, and Elon Musk's company put the tech in Noland Arbaugh, a 29-year-old American. The stream showed Noland using the implant to play games while he explained how the computer in his brain worked.
So we started out with trying out a few different things. We basically went from what we call kind of differentiating like imagined movement versus attempted movement. So a lot of what we started out with was attempting to move. So I would attempt to move, say, my right hand, left, right, forward. And from there, I think it just became intuitive for me to start imagining the cursor moving. It was like using the force on the cursor, and I could get it to move wherever I wanted, just stare somewhere in the screen and it would move where I wanted it to, which was such a wild experience.
Sky News science correspondent Thomas Moore said the brain-computer interface showcased real potential.
It's quite amazing to see Noland using the computer chip, and he's had it implanted in January and is really getting to know it very well. He says at first it was a learning process, but now he just looks at the screen on his laptop where he wants the cursor to go, and there it goes. It is through the power of thought. And it's because this brain chip is reading the brain signals, the 86 billion neurons in his brain, and some of those are to do with movement. And the chip sits on top of those, reads those signals, and sends them wirelessly to a device attached to the laptop itself. So in a way, it is just the way that we learn to move when we are babies, but is now being replicated through technology. Incredible to watch.
There was certainly some scepticism, though. The former director of the neural engineering at the US National Institutes of Health, Kip Ludwig, said what he'd seen didn't qualify as a breakthrough. In November, a study launched to test whether it can control a robotic arm. And as we'd expect, Musk has even bigger dreams for the technology in the future. During a Joe Rogan podcast, he talked about what the device could be capable of.
If you've got like some version 10 Neuralink, whatever, far in the future, you could recall everything, but just like it's a movie, including all the entire sensory experience,
emotions, everything,
and play it back. And
Do you think you'll be able to share?
Edit it?
Yeah. So you can change your past.
You could change what you think was your past. Yeah.
So if you had like
this
a traumatic
whole thing
experience,
right now could be a replayed memory.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, we hear about the cutting-edge satellites unlocking the secrets of our clouds and climate.
Right after this.
Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Welcome back.
Rosemary Coogan became Northern Ireland's first official astronaut back in April after intensive training at the European Astronaut Centre in Cologne. The astrophysicist and astronomer is the UK's third ever career astronaut after Helen Sharman and Tim Peake. At the time, she spoke to Sky News about her training and taking her next giant leap.
I'm so excited. I feel like I'm finishing one part of the journey. You know, we're finishing our basic training, which is fantastic after 1 year, but it really is just the first of many steps to get into space. It really is a really, really exciting time, actually, for our training and for the space community as a whole.
The training was tough at times, but Rosemary said some of the requirements surprised her.
I wasn't expecting to be having a course in photography during basic training, but actually it's an incredibly important tool to use on the space station. Some of the particularly amazing outreach that we do, as well as kind of comparing how the Earth looks between one mission to the next, which is obviously really important for how our Earth is changing. But a lot of the important communication we do is done by taking pictures of the Earth. It's a fantastic vantage point from the ISS. So indeed, things like photography training were certainly a big surprise. But it's just been a really broad training in everything from engineering and systems to the practical trainings as well.
Libby Jackson is the head of space exploration at the UK Space Agency, and she says future astronauts need a wide range of skills.
This is the basic training that the European Space Agency provide to all of their astronaut candidates. Rosemary and her fellow classmates were selected at the end of 2022. They spent a year basically getting everybody up to speed in everything that you need to know to be an astronaut. People have come from different backgrounds. Some of them are pilots. Rosemary is an astrophysicist. There's doctors, a whole mix of people. So they've been in the classroom. They've been learning about the science experiments that take place on the International Space Station. And then they've been doing some practical training skills. They've done survival training. And just this week, they've been on a parabolic flight to experience what weightlessness is like. So they have done all sorts of things.
Two.
We've all probably spent too much time on the internet over the past year, and as we've already heard, it can be a tricky and scary space to navigate because of trolls, scammers and hackers. But what if your pet was able to log on too? In May, an intriguing project emerged from the University of Glasgow, which suggests that animals might actually enjoy being online. Lead author of the study, Dr. Ileana Hursky-Douglas, is from the University of Glasgow School of Computing Science, and she's been doing some really interesting projects with animals and technology. She started with creating a sensory environment for lemurs, and it turns out they really like music.
We found overall that as a species, they prefer to listen to audio more than silence, so they will trigger the device if it's playing any sort of audio more than silence. However, as different species, they listen differently. So brown lemurs, for instance, interact much longer than black and white lemurs. However, though, if we go down into an individual level, and this doesn't surprise anyone who knows about audio themselves, as individuals, we have different audio preferences as well.
She didn't stop there, though, and teamed up with researchers from the US's Northeastern University to study the social life of parrots in more detail. They trained the birds how to use Facebook Messenger for video calls and set up friend lists for them, and were amazed at the results.
Parrots are notoriously often kept alone, often never see another one of their same species, kept as pets frequently, especially in the US. And so I started to look into building video call devices for parrots. So I started to build devices where parrots could video call each other. From this, we found that parrots had favorite friends, if we call it like this. They had parrots they preferred to call. And how parrots were using and this video call device was by using tablets in the same way we would do, but they use it with their tongue. It's not so easy to train a parrot to use a touchscreen with their tongue. And from sort of all this research about parrots using and controlling touchscreens, I started to wonder if, in the same way that we have looked at humans on how best we can use touchscreens, and we have all various different screens in our life now, from watches to tablets to, VR and all these different sorts of interfaces, if we can improve the interfaces for parrots as well.
We started to learn more about clouds over the summer, particularly about how they work when it comes to climate and temperature regulation. A new joint European-Japanese project saw a unique satellite launch in June. The EarthCare satellite went from California on a SpaceX rocket. The Director General of the European Space Agency, Yusuf Ashbasher, says it was a significant moment.
Tonight's launch is a reminder that space is not only about exploring distant galaxies and planets, it is about understanding our beautiful but fragile Earth. EarthCare is a groundbreaking mission developed by the European Space Agency in collaboration with JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency. They have shown a major commitment of time, talent and tenacity.
The satellite weighs just over 2 tons and has been in the planning for more than 20 years. It went equipped with loads of high-spec tech, including a camera, radar and an ultraviolet laser to analyse cloud formations in lots of detail. The satellite's name stands for Earth Cloud Aerosol and Radiation Explorer, and in just 1 month it delivered precise 3D measurements of clouds. The University of Reading's Meteorology Department has been involved with the satellite for many years. Emeritus Professor of Astrophysics Anthony Illingworth said it should produce some valuable new data on how the planet heats and cools.
Most sensors from space are passive. In other words, they just look at upwelling radiation, and you can't really tell where it's come from. You know the direction, but you don't know the distance. Once you have an active sensor, you send out a pulse of energy, and the time it takes to get back tells you exactly the distance. So that's an enormous advance.
Professor Robin Hogan has been working on the Earth Space Project since its inception 25 years ago, and he is the co-chair of the Mission Advisory Group.
There's a large uncertainty because of the way that clouds may respond to warming due to emitting carbon dioxide, and so we're really going to make a big difference with this amazing satellite, and I'm really looking forward. We're super excited to see the data coming in.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
At Leidos, a brilliant mind is smart, but a brilliant team is smarter. A ship that finds enemy subs is smart, but an autonomous fleet, that's smarter. Defending against cyber attacks? Smart. Stopping attacks before they start? Smarter. And using AI tools is smart. But integrating trusted mission AI into your technology is smarter. We're not just making technology solutions in national security and health. We're making smart smarter. Leidos.